Good morning, students. Today we are going to study lesson number 2, Lost Spring in Flamingo. And this chapter is written by Anis Jung, a famous writer of her time. First of all, about the author. Anis Jung is an Indian female author, journalist, and columnist who writes for major newspapers in India and abroad. She was born in Rourkela and belongs to an aristocratic family in Hyderabad. Her father, Nawab Hoshyar Jung, who was a renowned scholar and poet, worked as the Musahib. Musahib means here advisor to the last Nizam. Nizam means here prince of Hyderabad state. And her mother and brother are also well-known Urdu poets. Anis Jung hit the headlines with the publication of Unveiling India in 1987, which is primarily a travel diary that focuses on interviews with women. She went on writing many subsequent books on the same topic and talked to women about their everyday lives and wrote books like Night of the New Moon, Encounters with Muslim Women in India in 1993 and Seven Sisters in 1994. Her book Breaking the Silence was written in 1997, includes conversations on women's lives from around the world. Dear students, let us have the brief summary of the lesson number 2, The Lost Spring. As we all know, spring is the season associated with optimism and hope. It also works as a metaphor for the childhood stage of our life, right from the time we are born until late childhood. Every child hopes for new beginning and a bright future. The phase of childhood is all about innocence, energy, and tremendous inclination towards outdoors activities along with fun and play. And playtime does not have any limits. It is also a time of getting more skill and knowledge and going to school. Here we take a look at a particularly impressive rendition. Here is the Lost Spring summary. The Lost Spring, written by Anis Jung, talks about the national shame of children being forced to live a life of poverty and exploitation. The main two protagonists of the chapter, Sahibe Alam and Mukesh, don't live their childhood as they have to carry the burden of poverty and illiteracy. In their miserable stories of exploitation, the author provides glimpses of fortitude and resilience. Dear students, let us have the detailed summary of Lost Spring. The story Lost Spring deals with the deplorable condition of poor children who get forced to miss the simple, joyful moments of childhood because of their socio-economic conditions. These children are not given the opportunity of schooling and are compelled means they are forced, to start working early in life. The author Anis Jung strives hard to eliminate child labor through her book. She propagates the education of children and enforcement of strict laws against child labor by the government. The message is to put an end to child exploitation and let all children enjoy their days of the spring and joy. Now, in this chapter, Lost Spring, there are two characters, leading characters. Number one is Sahibi Alam, who is a rag picker, and second character is Mukesh, son of a bangle maker. So let us have the first part of this lesson, in which the first heading is written in the textbook. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. The first part talks about the writer's impressions about the life of the unfortunate rag pickers. The rag pickers migrate from Dhaka and find a settlement in Simapuri. They end up losing their fields and homes due to storms. They then come to the big city to find a living but are poor. The author then watches Sahib Alam, the rag picker, every morning, who is always scrounging for gold. Scrounging means here looking for gold in her neighborhood. Garbage is actually the means of survival for the elders, and it is something wrapped. Wrapped means covered in wonder for the children. Sometimes the children find a coin or two from it. Even these kids have desires and ambitions, but they have no clue about how to achieve them. There are many things that are unreachable to them. For instance means for example, shoes, tennis, and similar stuff. Later on, Sahib starts working at a tea stall where he earns rupees 800 and also gets to eat all the meals, but the job takes away his freedom. Let us have the second part of the lesson, Lost Spring, in which the heading is written in the textbook, I want to drive a car. The second part is about the life of Mukesh, who comes from the family of bangle makers. Firozabad is quite popular for its glass blowing industry. A staggering 20,000 children are a part of this business, and any law that forbids child labor is virtually ignored here. Also, the working environment and the living conditions are pathetic. Children live in dingy cells and work around hot furnaces that make them blind when they enter adulthood. Since they are weighed down by debt, they cannot think of find any way to escape this trap. The politicians, policemen, middlemen, and bureaucrats obstruct their way of progress. Most women in such families think that this is their fate. Fate means their destiny, and just follow the tradition. But Mukesh is very different from the rest of the folks there. He has dreams of becoming a motor mechanic. The garage is quite far from his house, but he shall walk. Now, students, let us have the synopsis or gist of the whole lesson. The first part. Sometimes I find a rupee in garbage. So briefly, we are going to just have the gist of the whole lesson of this part. The author here is analyzing the poor conditions and traditions that push children to live a life of exploitation. They are also denied education and face hardships quite early in their lives. The writer comes across Sahib, a rag picker whose parents have left Dhaka and their life of poverty to earn a living. Living means a livelihood in Delhi. Just like many other families, even his family lives in Simapuri. They don't own any other identification other than a ration card. These children can't afford to go to school but get excited when they find a coin or a 10 rupee note while rummaging in the garbage. This is their only way of earning. The writer feels awful to see Sahib, a rag picker whose name also means the ruler of the earth, but the poor child has lost his childhood and roams means here wanders here and there, barefoot with his friends. Right from morning to afternoon, the author comes across him in a tea stall. Sahib becomes sad as he realizes that he is no longer the master of his own destiny, and the loss of identity weighs heavily on his tender shoulders. Another gist of the second part of the story, Lost Spring, I want to drive a car. The author sheds light on another victim of child labor, Mukesh, who dreams of becoming a motor mechanic. But the child has always worked in the glass making industry. They get exposed to many health hazards means here the risk dangers, such as losing their eyesight as they work in appalling conditions in dark and dingy cells. Mukesh's father is blind, and even his father and grandfather were blind. So the bangle makers of Firozabad are so burdened that they have stopped dreaming, unlike Mukesh, who wants to drive a car. So this was all about the Lost Spring summary of class 12th English core 301. So it is extremely crucial to understand the hidden meanings of the writer's story to score well in this topic. Thank you and have a nice day.